Despite your very vigorous assertions, I still have very serious concerns that have been brought up by all of my colleagues about this bank tax and its potential impact on consumers and small businesses. And the reason I'm so terribly concerned is that in a state like Kansas, we have 66,000 small businesses, and they employ over half of our employees. And so whatever happens or whatever could happen is a big deal. I understand the tax is targeted at the large financial institutions, and you've certainly stressed that, to quote Willie Sutton, because that's where the money is. I am convinced this tax will ultimately harm small businesses through higher costs for borrowing or reduced access to credit, or that the tax will not be passed on to and paid by consumers. Now, I'm not going to ask you to respond again because you've done that, and I hope your assertions are correct. By some estimates, the bank tax could remove up to $1 trillion in lending. Do you have concerns that removing this capital from the system, reducing lending to consumers and small businesses, will slow the economic recovery?
I do not have concerns, and if I did, we would not have proposed this tax. And Senator, you know, I just want to make the following observation, which is that I understand why the institutions that do not want to pay this tax don't want to pay it. And I understand that in making arguments against it, they will threaten grave economic damage to small businesses if they're forced to pay this tax. But we have a legal obligation to cover the costs of TARP. We have to propose a way to do that that is fair. We'd be open to other suggestions for doing it. But I can't actually imagine other proposals that would carry less risk of damage to the lending case. Again, it's only less than 1% of institutions. The vast bulk of institutions that provide businesses to main streets across the country are not covered by the tax, and their competitive position, as CBO said, would be improved by this design. If there are other suggestions for how to do it in a way that's more fair, would carry less risk, of course we would be open to them.
Well, if it does happen in regards to small business, rest assured this committee will be eager to suggest, various ways to you. I don't know about any threats that anybody has been making. If that's the case, that's the subject of another hearing. What happens down the road for TARP? The TARP program is set to expire this October. Any TARP-related programs that will continue to operate beyond this date?
Well, sorry, beyond this date? No, we're putting this program out of its misery as quickly as we can, and we're going to return unused hundreds of billions of dollars of authority to the Congress, unused, much lower cost, saving the American taxpayer hundreds of billions of dollars relative to what people expected, and that will provide resources to help reduce our long-term deficit.
Well, I got one for you here. There's the Home Affordable Modification Program I keep reading about, $50 billion. If so, what exposure risk do the programs pose to the U.S. taxpayer in regards to the fact that if we keep going here with HAMP, that's the acronym for the Home Affordable Modification Program. Everything has to be an acronym here.
It is a terrible acronym, I agree with you. But it's a very good program, but it will cost the taxpayer money. And if we ultimately commit the $50 billion we've committed, we're prepared to commit to help resolve the housing crisis, then all of that money will be at risk of loss.
But does that come from the TARP program?
Yes, it comes from the TARP program. It does.
So down the road there is another program, another $50 billion worth of exposure, if in fact that
no, it's an existing
decision.
Again, it's an existing program we put in place more than a year ago. And we've said we wouldn't spend more than 50. If we spend up to 50, that money will be at risk of loss. But again, this program, Senator, is providing a very, very substantial benefit in helping stabilize house prices and helping right now more than 1 million Americans stay in their homes with much lower monthly payments.
Okay. In testimony before the committee April 20, the IG, Neil Borofsky, outlined where the losses in TARP are concentrated. You've already talked about this a little bit. $50 billion for AIG automobiles, $31 billion, housing $49 billion. Any plans to recover these losses from those TARP recipients? If so, how would that be accomplished? If not, why not?
In AIG and the auto companies, again, these companies are going through very wrenching, difficult restructuring plans. that are designed to help us recover as much of those investments as possible. And I think ultimately we're going to recover a very substantial fraction of those investments, again, at much lower risk of loss than we anticipated and that are in those estimates. Housing is different. The housing program, these are, in effect, direct expenditures, direct investments, and they have much higher risk of loss. But, Senator, even in pointing out that the ultimate costs are lower than we feared and that we've achieved more stability at lower cost than we had hoped, there is still substantial risk of loss, and every 6 months from now until any investment is, all the investments are back, we'll provide estimates of what the ultimate losses are.
I think that's why some of our committee members, Mr. Chairman, wanted to wait until 2013. But at any rate, I'm over time. I'd like to submit a question for the record, however, to the Secretary. Thank you.